Hey, Ed, you there?
I'm here.
Hey, what's going on, sir? How are you?
All right, pretty good. Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I can't complain. And if
All
I
right.
did, I'd just be wasting my breath.
Yeah, it's true because pretty much nobody really gives a shit anyway, right?
The older I get, the more I find how true that is.
Oh wait, you're only 25.
Yep.
You almost got 50 more years to catch up to me. Almost. In about 45 years, you can catch up to me, and you'll find out when
All
people
right.
don't give a shit. Well, you know what happens? Even better than that, what happens is, well, I'll tell you what. When I turned 50, my philosophy changed. So you know what? The first 50 years were yours. Next 50 years are mine. You know, and then when I retired and got my pension and my Social Security, now I kind of have an attitude. You don't like what I say? I really don't give a fuck.
I like it. That's the first note that I'm putting. That's the first. We're not even a minute in the phone call yet, and that's the first note I'm putting in my notebook here.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, I got my pension and my Social Security. You can't take that away from me. So you don't like what I got to say? Tough shit. Put on your big boy pants and get over it.
Awesome. Awesome. So I mean, we have a bunch of different stories we can go over. I don't know if there's any specifically that you wanted to get into. Whatever you'd like to talk about, we can go there.
Yeah, you got it. I got some things written down here, but I don't know. I think we went over some of them. But where did we leave off? Do you remember?
We left off on about Captain Gander. It was his last stand going out. That was kind of where we left off at.
Oh yeah.
About him wanting to go out and this. So it was they
John
pulled him
Wayne
out
wanted to go out like John Wayne.
John Wayne. That was it. And then he went out. The night that you were with him, he was saying, the captain or the commander or whatever pulled you guys out and said, man, these guys got no sense of humor. And the second night they actually got to go out like John Wayne, like you said.
Yeah, he caught the second night. The night that I was with him, we came into the fire building through the rear of the tenement. So we really didn't know what was going on out in front of the building. All the other companies were in front of the building. But what happened was when this guy Bobby was the chauffeur, when he made the left turn into the street where the back of the fire building was, the captain saw a hydrant right away, and he said to Bobby, "Get on that hydrant." And we got on the hydrant. This guy Billy had the nozzle. He told me, he goes, "Cut that lock off the gate and let's get in there." And we could see the top floor was going really good, So we got up there with the line, and like I said, the top floor was roaring really good. But we were having a good time. And then the chief is calling us on the radio to get out of the building. And the captain gets on the radio and calls the chief, and he goes, "Just give me another line up here, and we got this." Well, the chief comes back, and he says, and he calls the captain. Now he calls him by his name. He goes, "Eddie, you don't have it. The fire's at exposure A, B, C, and D. Get out of the building," right? So finally we backed down out of the building, and me and this other guy, Eddie, Burke, his name is. You see him in that picture that I sent you.
Mm-hmm.
We go over to the chief, and Eddie was the senior man that night, and Eddie says to the chief, "Listen, chief, it's the captain's, second to last night. He's going to be promoted day after tomorrow. You think maybe we could get a unit citation for this fire?" The chief goes, his face turned red. He goes, "A unit citation? I ought to fucking hook you guys up. Now get the fuck out of here." Like, okay, sorry about that, chief. And the chief was really a good guy. His name was Eddie Boston, and he was an unbelievable battalion commander. And he used to say, thank God for streets and avenues, otherwise we'd burn the whole damn city down.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so the next night I wasn't working, and they caught an even bigger fire, a third alarm, and they said the captain really went out like John Wayne that night. So it was good. It was good for him, But he was Eddie Gander. He was a very, very brash kind of guy, but you know, one of those guys where his bark is worse than his bite.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had a heart of gold, but boy, could he lay shit out, boy, to people. And when he got an idea in his head, you know, he's an old German guy. There was no changing it. There was no changing it. You know, and like I said, working with him was unbelievable because he spent, I'd say, 30 years of his career in the ghetto, fighting fires. I mean, you know, I could never think of going to the amount of fires that he had gone to. You know, and I told you the story about my first fire with him.
Refresh my memory.
The one where I was watching him and I had the nozzle, and he didn't put his mask on, so I didn't think I would need my mask.
Oh yeah, and you almost ate it that day.
Oh God. Well, yeah, I'm choking to death, and he's talking, going, "Come on, Elwood, move the line down the hallway." And I'm wondering, how the fuck is he breathing? I'm dying here, you know. And finally, I had to give the nozzle up, you know, and go out, put my mask on, and then come back in. But but yeah, that was a lesson learned. And the guy I gave the nozzle up, my backup man, Billy, he had some seniority on me. He says to me, "You followed what the captain did, huh?" I go, "Yeah, well, I figured he didn't need his mask." I don't. He goes, "He's got 30 years on a job. You can't do what the captain does." I said, "Well, why didn't you tell me that?" Because if I would have told you that, you would have put your mask on, and I wouldn't have ended up with the nozzle. Lessons learned. You know?
You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, exactly. And another night, working with the captain, we were pulling into a job that we were third due on. Good job. And as we pull in, the chief comes up to us and he says to the captain, he goes, "Eddie, I just got a report from the roof," meaning the roof of the building that we were supposed to go to. "There's another job 2 blocks away. They can see it from the roof. Can you get over there and do something?" And so the captain goes, "Oh, yeah, all right, we're on the way," you know. And we get in the rig, and the captain goes, "You know the best part about this? You can't fuck up because they just asked you to go over there and do something. You know, so no matter what you do, you're right." So we went over there, and that fire went to a second alarm. But we got in there by ourselves for a while because all the companies around us that normally work with us, they were committed to this fire. You know, and it was a crazy night that night, you know, but we did have a good time being there by ourselves for a while because we could do anything we wanted, you know. But anyway, and let's see, what else do I have here?
The one with the Irish accent.
Oh, that story, I believe, is in one of the books that I sent you.
Is it the books or the magazine?
In the books. In the book.
Okay.
Those 2 books I sent you from Phil Burns. Phil Burns spent 40 years on a job and retired as a deputy chief. And Phil worked again. He worked up in the South Bronx. He worked down in Brooklyn. I mean, another guy spent 40 years of his life in the ghetto. You know, legend of a fireman. And a legend of a chief. The only thing Phil didn't take, he didn't take no bullshit from nobody. If Phil said, "This is what you got to do," this is what you got to do. Like when Bunker Gear first came into the job, and actually the company that I was in Rescue 4, we were a big, I'd say, a big push and a big responsibility for getting Bunker Gear into the job. But that's a whole nother story. But when Bunker Gear came into the job, a lot of guys didn't want to wear it, you know. And as good as Bunker Gear is, you know, senior guys like myself that you know, we didn't start the job wearing Bunker Gear or anything. You know, we kind of knew. You probably heard this thing: for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, that's Albert Einstein said that, and it's the truth. It's the truth, you know. So the Bunker Gear saved a lot of guys from getting burns on their legs and what have you, you know, and the hoods and all that. I mean, it saved a lot of burns. But the other thing that bunker gear did is guys ended up without a lot of experience, guys ended up going into a fire deeper than they really should have been, because you couldn't feel the heat. You know, when we just had the you know, the turnout coat and your pants and your boots. I mean, if you worked in the truck or in a rescue, you wore a turnout coat, jeans, and work boots. You know, rarely did you wear your rubber boots. You know, guys in the engine, they wore those boots because they were dealing with water all the time. You know, and they were getting soaked. But in the ladder companies and the rescues, most guys just wore jeans and work boots. You know, black work boots. So anyway, what you would be able to feel the heat because, you know, your ears were a little bit exposed. So when your ears started to get a little burns on the ends of the ears, you could feel your ears burning. You know, you knew it was like, hey, it's getting hot in here. We got to back up, or we got to get some water going, you know, real fast. Where when you're all bundled up and encapsulated the way guys are today, you're not going to feel that. You know, so you have to be more aware of what's going on, you know. And one of the things that I used to do when we got the bunker gear and all that is one of the index finger on my right glove, I cut the finger off of the glove. So my index finger would be exposed. And if you're crawling down a hallway and you wanted to see how hot it was getting, I would just start to stick my hand up in the air with my exposed finger. And if I could feel the heat against my finger, then I knew, you know, what's going on. You know, it's getting a little hot in here or so, or, you know, we got to get some water going, you know. But, you know, so it saved a lot of things like that. But the other thing it also did is it caused guys to overheat faster because, again, you're bundled up and your core temperature rises. We had one chief saying, he goes, it's going to end up causing more heart attacks on the job because guys are going to overheat, you know. And there were some guys that died of heart attacks, you know, and I believe it was from the getting overheated in the bunker gear. But I mean, all in all, the bunker gear, once you got used to it and what have you, it was a big improvement as far as personal protective equipment, you know, because it definitely saved a lot of guys from getting burned, you know. So the change, it came about a little bit tough, you know, to older guys. But once you got into it and realized, hey, yeah, all right, this ain't so bad, you know. And you know, now you can see guys, they'll never go back to work pants. And well, the other thing we used to wear too to save your legs from getting burned, excuse me, at least when you wore your rubber boots, because you know when you pull the rubber boots up, they call them hip boots. So so from the bottom of your hip to your waist, a lot of that was unprotected. So what we found out, well, actually, what one guy found out, this guy Dennis Mojica in Rescue 1, is the guy. There's another legend on the job. I mean, tons of experience. He started wearing long, knee-length cotton underwear, and that he spread the word around that if you wear that, it helped save you from getting burns in that upper part of your leg that was unprotected. And it did work. It was an extra layer of protection. It did work, you know. But anyway, you know, that was some of the, like I said, some of the changes that came through that we weren't a little bit happy with, but it had to be done, you know. And I don't know, am I getting off track here a little bit?
No, never. But you were saying that Phil Burns kind of, you know, took no shit. So when the bunker gear came out,
so that was the story. Yeah, when bunker gear came out, yeah, Phil, you know, guys were reluctant to wear it, you know, and they would still go back to the boots, you know, and the coats. And Phil was the in the 11th division was the division commander. You know, he was the head chief in the division. So Phil would tell the guys at fires, hey, look, you have a bunker gear program, you got to wear the bunker gear. Don't let me see you without the bunker gear, you know. And guys would go, yeah, all right, chief. And then in another job, he'd see guys without bunker gear. Finally, Phil sends down an order to all the companies in the division. And this might be in the book. The order he sent down that he's gonna hook up anybody, give charges to anybody he finds not wearing the bunker gear, and any officer that's in command are going to get charges for not supervising their companies. You know, so that kind of made everybody go, I guess he ain't fucking around. You know, so and that's another thing that happens on the job is my friend Tommy Williams, a lieutenant that got killed. He used to say, and this happened one time, I was up in the office talking to him, and Tommy gets his paperwork back from a chief, and I hear Tommy goes, what does this fucking guy want? This is the second time he sent this request. I said, well, why don't you send him back what he wants? You know, it's a report that he wanted. So he goes, let me explain something to you. If they send you a request for a report, the first request goes right in the garbage. He goes, if they want it, they'll send you a second request for the report. He said, and you take that one and you put it in the garbage. If they send it a third time asking for a request, that means they really want it, so then you make it out. So I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, it saves a lot of paperwork, you know. I said, all right. He goes, because if they really didn't want it, he goes, they wouldn't be sending the request back 3 times. So if you would have sent them the request, sent them the paperwork on the first request, because you would have had to make out a report that they really didn't give a shit about getting. I said, all right, I get it, you know. And it makes sense, you know. And, so like I say, that's where I learned that one. And again, like I say, that's what I mean. Where when Phil it came down to business, you kind of knew when Phil was down to business, and there was no fooling around, you know. And you did what he wanted because, again, he was a good chief, and people respected him. You know, there were some chiefs on the job that I can tell you that not too many people had respect for, you know, but that's just kind of like human nature. You know, you probably have that on your job too. There's officers that people would go put the fires out in hell for. And then there's officers that guys will say, well, what do you want me to do next? You know, you understand what I mean with that?
Well, I get you. And it kind of all depends on, I mean, I guess a little bit of their, you know, leadership capital, if you will, or their, you know, kind of how they operated beforehand too. You know, they always say, you know, once you move from being a private into those officer roles, you know, things change a lot. You know, sometimes the guys got to lay the hammer down. You know, other people don't take kindly to it, and it's just kind of it's a headache back and forth. But I feel like the guys that, you know, find that happy medium, that sweet spot, you know, to still show you care about your guys, you know, exactly. And that's who those are the ones that, you know, he just said the guys would go put the fire out for.
Yeah, exactly. You know, if you've got a guy that got promoted, you know, he was a fireman, worked in busy companies and stuff, got a few years on the job, got some time behind him, you know, and the guys respected him and everything, and now he gets promoted and he's going to be a boss. Well, as fireman, you have to respect him now. You know, he's a boss. You know where the guy's coming from. Give the guy what he wants. All right, now, chances are a guy like that's not going to turn into some dickhead, you know, because he wasn't in some pencil pushing company somewhere out in the suburbs. You know, he was in there getting his ass kicked, so he knows the deal. You know, and So that's what happens. And well, what happened with us two times. I'll tell you these stories. We got a new chief in our battalion, and he was a captain up in the South Bronx, and he had a great reputation. And he came down to the battalion and introduced himself to everybody, and went around to every company, introduced himself. Well, anyway, we catch a job one night. We're first due to the job. The job went to a third alarm. After the job was over, we take up and we go back to the firehouse and we're getting cleaned up and everything. In walks the chief. And he's got a case of Budweiser under his arm, and he throws it down on the table and he goes, "Hey, fellas, thanks for the good job." And he walked out, and we were like, fuck, guys will put the fires out in hell for a guy like that, because he's been there, because he gets it. Then we found out his whole reputation prior to the job. He was a Vietnam vet, and he was what they called a tunnel rat in Vietnam. I don't know if you know what those guys did.
I mean, I've read a couple books detailing like the general idea, but I mean, what you say? We go into the little hideout holes and clear the holes out essentially. Where
go in with a flashlight and a pistol, and clear the tunnels out. And I don't care what you say, that takes a lot of balls to do that.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of guy this guy was. Then we had another chief who came to us from, and he worked in Manhattan. So Manhattan, we kind of have this thing about Manhattan. Manhattan's like Hollywood. Those guys are always in their right uniform because that's the show. Everything is the way it is because it's the show. You come down in the ghetto, the ghetto is what the ghetto is. Anyway, so this fella comes down into the ghetto now, and he spent most of his career up in Midtown Manhattan. And now he's going to come down the ghetto, and he's going to start telling us how we should fight fires in the buildings that we have. And finally this one guy, Bobby, who had about 30 plus years on the job, says to the chief, "You're going to come here and you're going to tell us how to fight fires here? That'll be the day." So what started happening is guys would start asking the chief, "Well, what do you want us to do, chief? What do you want us to do?" And normally you pull up, you get off the rig, and you just go do what you got to do. Well, again, some of the senior guys would get off and say, "Hey, chief, you got any orders for us? Anything you want us to do? Any changes?" And finally the chief got the point. And he didn't spend too much time in our battalion, and he went elsewhere. Wasn't a bad guy, but it was like, what it was like? It was like bringing a guy from another world. I think I told you a long time ago when we started talking, you take a guy out of Brownsville, Bed-Stuy, Bushwick, and you promote him to a lieutenant, and now you put him in Midtown Manhattan. You might as well take in a guy from, someplace in Kansas or so and put him in Midtown Manhattan, because he's never had any fires like this, So in those cases, you got to listen to the guys in the firehouse, and I had a captain in Rescue 4, I will say, one of the best officers I've ever seen and as a captain, an unbelievable captain. This fellow's name was Jack Cochran, and he was just unbelievable. But his thing was, if you take care of the men will take care of you, and that's what he did. He took care of his men. He made sure, everybody was happy and we got things done and all that. And, it got to the point, when you have officers like that, they don't even have to give orders, because you're just going to go out and you're just going to do the job, and, that's kind of like life in the fire department. We had another guy. He came to work. He was a brand new lieutenant. He gets assigned to cover a vacation, in 218 engine where I started out as. And this guy, you had to like this guy. He comes into the firehouse, comes into the kitchen. He said, fellas, I just want to let you know something. He said, I spent the last 5 years working in an office down in headquarters. I don't have any fucking idea how to put out a fire. You know, so we said to him, Lou, don't worry about it. Just grab on our coattails and hang on for the ride. You know? And I remember one job, he's getting out of the rig, and he almost falls out of the rig. He's tangled up in his mask, you know. It's like, all right, Lou, wait a minute. Let me put your mask on. Wait here. Don't forget your flashlight. You know, all right, you good? Yeah, all right, let's go. You know, and he was there for a little while, you know, and he had a ball. He had a great time. He goes, I forgot what I missed. He goes, I forgot how much fun this is, you know, and he might have been down working in an office, you know, due to maybe personal reasons, maybe had some family problems or something, or, you know, whatever, you know, but it didn't take him too long to get back into the program, you know, but those are the kind of guys that you respect, you know, that come out and tell you, you know, what their capabilities are, you know, and the guys that know how to fight the fires, you're going to know those guys, and they're not going to tell you what their capabilities are because you already know that. You know, it's the guy that comes through the door that hasn't done too much work, the honest guy, and he's going to tell you, look, I need your help. You know, I might be the boss, but I need your help. You know, and that's the guy you're going to have a ton of respect for because he's being honest with you. You know?
And it takes a lot for somebody to be able to do that, especially when you, like you said, when you get to those officer, you know, those places of rank, you know, you feel like people are looking to you, so it's hard for you to look back, you know, down and say, hey, I need your help. So I think that's where people can admit that, hey, you know, I need your help, like you were saying. I think that's where you build a big relationship with people. Yeah, well, that's how you get the men to take care of you, and that's how you take care of them. Because if you become a boss and you don't let the men know, you know, that what your capabilities are, like I say, if they don't already know it, you know, and what I mean by that is if you came from a place where you didn't do a lot of work and now you're in a real busy place, you got to tell those guys, hey, look, man, you know, I was out here working it. We didn't catch a lot of work, you know, and I know this is a busy place. So I'm going to need your help. And that takes a real man to admit, you know, his, what do you call it? Not his faults, but to admit his weaknesses, you know, and those are the guys that gain all the respect, you know. But anyway, you know, that's moving right along, so to speak. Let me see, what else did I have written down here? The story about the Irish accent. Oh, yeah. I never worked. I worked maybe a couple of overtime tours up in the Bronx in Rescue 3, but I had never heard this guy on the radio. But I heard stories about him, and then Phil Burns, I believe, tells a story about the fire. Now I don't know if I told you this. On the job, when you have a job going, I believe it's every 20 to 30 minutes, you have to give a progress report. The chief has to give a progress report. And what happens is the chief's aide gives the progress report, you know. So you might hear something like Battalion 28 to Brooklyn, and you'll hear Brooklyn say progress report at box 741. We have 2 hand lines stretching in operation. Trucks are opening up. Fire is doubtful. You know, so some people used to say, "What do you mean the fire is doubtful?" It means it's doubtful. We're going to put it out with what we got. That's what that means. Or they'll give the under control. You know, or they're going to transmit another alarm. You know, but you're supposed to give
the progress report of the building on your first progress report. So you'll give, maybe we have a 20 by 60 3-story frame building, fires on the first and second floor, 2 hand lines are in operation, trucks are opening up, searches are underway, fires doubtful. All right, so now the dispatchers hear that, and all the other companies on the scene hear that. So anyway, what happened in the story you'll read there was the Bronx dispatcher had called the battalion, and I forget what battalion it was, but I'll just say it was the 17th Battalion. And they said, Bronx to Battalion 17. And so he gets on, he goes, Battalion 17. And they said, your progress report's overdue, 10 minutes overdue or something, whatever it was. So he gets back on the radio and he says, we're going to need more trucks. So he told them they had a big fire, we're going to need more trucks. And the dispatcher says, well, what kind of trucks do you want? And he was just messing with him, And the guy gets back on the radio, the chief saying, he goes, well, the goddamn fucking red ones, what do you think? But, there's funny stories like that. Like I said, I only read that, but I know Phil, telling the story. It's a great story, but, like I say, there's some real funny stories like that. But and then let me see, what else do I have written down here? Oh, we had you ever watch a TV show called Saturday Night Live?
I've seen sketches. I've never actually sat down and watched the full entire thing before. Okay,
well, you ever see when they start the show in the beginning? It's 11:30 on Saturday night, and whatever the people that are going to be on, somebody comes out and yells live from New York. It's Saturday night.
Yep.
Well, anyway, we had this large crane collapse in Times Square, and had one civilian get killed. A number of people got hurt. But now when the crane came down, there was a building under construction, naturally, and a lot of the scaffolding was hanging. And the scaffolding was up maybe 10, 15, 18 stories, So now it's like, all right, we got to get the scaffolding down, make this safe so they can open the area up. Well, the area stayed closed for almost 2 weeks while the work was to get the scaffolding down. So we were there. Special operations was there the whole time while this was being done, and Times Square was closed off. So you couldn't drive through Times Square or walk through Times Square, So anyway, there's all fire trucks all over the place. So anyhow, it's a Saturday night, and I look at my watch and it's like 11:15. And we're just hanging around right now, and I get my friend Gonzo, who is this big guy from Rescue 3, Ray Phillips, great guy. Unfortunately, died from 9/11 cancer a few years ago. Anyway, I go, we're on our gear and everything. I go, Gonzo, come on, take a walk with me. Where are we going? I go, we're going up the street. So we go up to the middle of Times Square, and they got the police barriers all around, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people watching, what's going on with this operation. And so now me and him are standing in the middle of Times Square with all these people looking at us. We're the only 2 firemen standing in the middle of Times Square. Gonzo goes, what are you doing? I go, hold on a second. And I look at my watch, and now it's 11:30, and I scream out in Times Square, live from New York, it's Saturday night. And the crowd goes into a big roar and applauds. And Gonzo's like, we're going to get so much fucking trouble. Let's get the fuck out of here. What's wrong with you? I said, nothing. I always wanted to do that. So some of the crazy things that we would do, But
did you ever get in trouble for that?
No, nobody asked what it was. Some people asked what was everybody applauding about, and we were like, I don't know, there's something that happened up there, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you never admitted to anything, you know, but it was fun doing it. I'll tell you that. You know, it's just something that I always wanted to do. Yell in the middle of Times Square, live from New York. It's Saturday night, you know, and oh, let's see, what other stuff did I have written down here? Now you guys operate with two-way radio. You got two-way radios, right? Walkie-talkies.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those green ones, those like neon green ones, are kind of like a standard.
Yeah, that must be something something new. Ones in the city are all black. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, you know, those things. You know, a lot of guys. Now, do you guys have a radio and then it's got a wired microphone to it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you got to have that. You know, and I know what we used to do is get a radio clip on the collar of your turnout coat, you know, or try and clip the radio up as high on your collar as you can, and your radio is always underneath your coat. So the microphone wire came out of your coat because you didn't want your radio to get caught on anything or get damaged or anything like that. The reason why you would put it up high like that was, one, it was easy to talk into. You know, you just had to raise your hand up and click the click the speaker so you could talk. But the other thing was you had it near your ear so you could listen. You could listen if anybody said anything over the radio. You know, you would know what's going on at the fire. You know, and one of the big things, or one of the most important things you wanted to listen for, is if somebody gave an urgent message, if an urgent or a mayday. You know, and I found, you know, a lot of guys, you know, because there was so much noise going on and stuff, they got involved in everything, and they weren't listening, you know, to what was going on, you know, and sometimes they would miss. People would miss, even chiefs, because chiefs are busy, you know, in the operation, or they're busy down at the command post, and everybody's talking to them, or all of a sudden you'll hear somebody gives an urgent or somebody gives a mayday. Well, if anybody gives an urgent or a mayday, you wait a few seconds to see if somebody acknowledges them. If nobody acknowledges it and you heard it, you got to get on and you got to acknowledge that. You know.
Yeah, our SOGs are, if somebody does a mayday, basically what happens is that channel is now reserved for just the mayday operations, and then the entire fire will switch to another TAC channel. So say if they were on TAC 10 right now, someone calls mayday, everybody else will go to TAC 11, and then now TAC 10 is solely just for the mayday or emergency traffic message.
I see. All right, but now let me ask you this though. Now, when everybody goes to another channel, now who's monitoring the company or the person that gave the mayday?
So it would be the chief, essentially. So basically at night you got two radios going. I mean, typically you would have more than one officer. So like say you had, you know, the main one, you had like a safety officer and all those other kind of things. You would hand it off to basically to where that chief would be like, okay, I'm dedicated to this mayday. You know, you have the other radio in your pocket, just kind of keep an eyeball on what's going on. But the main priority would switch to would be, you know, the mayday.
Yeah, because see, sometimes what we would do in the rescue, again, when I worked with Tom Williams, if anything like that was going down, and we didn't switch to other channels. Everybody just stayed on the same channel, but they cleared the air. There was no talking on the air unless it was another urgent or a mayday or, you know, what have you. You know, so there's no unnecessary talk on the radio. You know, you had to get what I call radio discipline. But then what we would do in the rescue, you usually teamed up with two guys. You know, there's six guys 6 guys in the company working, so there's 3 teams. So one guy on a team would switch to another channel, and the other guy would stay on the regular channel. And the reason for that was so that the 3 teams could be on another channel communicating to them about what they were doing and where they were. And the other guy on the team was still on the main channel listening to what was going on the job, you know. And but again, I had been to jobs where, you know, I hear people give a mayday, and I wait, and there's no response. And then I get on the radio and say, unit giving a mayday. You know, what unit gave the mayday? And you call them back for them to acknowledge. And if people kept chattering on the radio because they didn't hear the mayday, I mean, I heard guys get on the radio and yell into the radio, "Shut the fuck up! Somebody just gave a mayday." Yeah, and sometimes you got to do that. You got to take command, or you got to call the chief. You got to try and get the chief on the radio. You know, and the chief calls you. What is it? You know, chief, someone just gave a mayday. You know, and then maybe, you know, the chief gets on the radio now. But very, very, very. The point I'm trying to make here is listen to the radio. You know, pay a lot of attention to the chatter that's going on the radio, because it could tell you a lot about what's going on the job. You know, if you're in the engine and you're crawling down the hallway, and the truck company is maybe on the roof or wherever they are, whatever they're doing, you know, I don't know what your procedures are there. Well, you can't see what they're doing. You know, so they're seeing another aspect of the job. And you might pick up on that and say, you know, hey, things are getting real shitty, or so, or maybe we got to get out of here, or maybe we got to, you know, we got to do something, you know. But it's just a way of paying attention to what's going on the job, you know.
Yeah, there was a BC taught us on one of his things was when they had the aerial going. They would have the aerial guy switch his to another channel, typically be like the last one, so you turn your knob all the way to one side where no one else is going to be on, and that's what you would have. So he would, if he needed to talk to the aerial guy, he'd be able to switch his radio all the way to that. Hey, what's going on? What do you see up there? We're good to go. You know, down a little bit to the left, you know, a little bit to the right. That's a good spot. Then go back to where he was at. You know, so that was one thing. You know, utilizing the radios in the different channels.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you know, too is a good option.
Yeah, no, that's good. Now, do your chiefs run with an aide?
What do you mean, aide?
See, all of our chiefs, battalion chiefs, deputy chiefs, they all have the battalion aide, the division aide, which is a fireman, who drives the chief. And when they get to a fire, the chief is in command of the fire, and so he'll be giving orders out around the fire if he has to. Most of the times he's not giving orders. He's just listening to the reports and asking what's going on, you know. And if he needs anything to be transmitted to the dispatcher or so, like if the chief turns around, let's say I'm the chief's aide, all right? So the chief, if I'm with the chief, if I'm near the command post, you know, and I may not be at the command post, but if I'm with him, he may just turn and say, Eddie, transmit a second alarm, you know, and I'll get on the radio and I'll call the dispatcher and tell him by orders of Battalion 2-8, transmit a second alarm, box 741, you know, or he'll say, give me an extra engine and truck. Or he might say, Eddie, get around the side there, let me know what's going on over there, you know. So you're kind of like, for lack of a better word, the chief's secretary, so to speak. You know, it's called the chief's aide. You aid the chief in what he's doing, make his life a little bit easier, you know. And so, like I said, I know a lot of departments don't do that, only because of, you know, manpower situations, you know. But I know, like over here in the volunteer department that I belong to, if we get a job, what'll happen a lot of times is maybe one of the senior guys who's, say, like me, who may not be inside fighting the fire, So I'm outside really not doing anything. So I'll go over to the chief and grab the radio and go, Chief, if you need anything, let me know. I'm on the radio. Okay. So I become his aide, So that's how we run with chief's aides, and it's a nice job, because you still get to get into the fires, not all the time, but some of the times, but you learn a lot too, because you're working with the chief,
Yeah, so we don't have the aides. I don't know if it's a manpower thing or they just don't necessarily see a need for it. But usually chiefs will respond and they have their own little buggies and they respond themselves.
Yeah,
that's kind of how they operate.
Yeah, no, I understand. A lot of departments do run like that, and most of the time it's because of manpower. You just don't have the manpower. You can't afford to give that guy up. Or we can't afford to pay a guy to drive the chief around. This is New York City. It's a little bit different, but it does help the chief, and a lot of chiefs used to say about chiefs that got along good with the rescue companies. There was 6 guys. The chief said, "You guys come in. I got 6 more sets of eyes on the fire." Because they would count on us to see, what's going on, and maybe report back to them, and not because they weren't getting information from the other companies, but maybe at that time the other companies are heavily engaged, so they're engaged in one area, they're not seeing the other area. With 6 guys, we all have assignments, so we're kind of surrounding the area and seeing what's going on, and again, more eyes for the chief, more reports that he can get. So a lot of chiefs used to say, yeah, when a rescue comes in, I got 6 more sets of eyes out there, and because it's important to get that information back to command. This way they know how the fire's going, and again, the guys inside the fire, they hear the messages over the radio, they know how the fire's going. So again, it goes back to paying attention to that speaker on your radio, and especially the maydays and the urgents. But one of the other things that I used to teach guys about was about size up. Very, very, very important stuff. Knowing how to size up a building, size up the fire. Read the smoke. I heard you say last week something about flow path.
Mm-hmm.
And now you guys, I guess you guys are into that. They're teaching you that or so?
Yeah, so they teach us that in the academy, and obviously, the academy kind of gives you a blanket statement about certain different places, and then when you get to obviously your district and your first year, like you said, you learn your own building construction there. So majority of where I'm at is a single story, one family residential areas. A couple of 2 stories here and there, and then a couple taxpayers, like you were saying, and a couple very few commercial businesses. So as far as we don't ever do any kind of vertical ventilation stuff. If we do, like I sent you that one picture where we were on, it was kind of like it was a false roof, and the fire had gotten up into the false roof, and so we put it out, on the bottom part, but it was still cooking on top. So we were up there just for that purpose. But as far as actual vertical ventilation, we usually don't, mess around with that.
Yeah, because you don't have. Well, like I said, in New York City, when it comes down to residential, we'll say what we call 2.5-story frames, which is probably what you guys are doing. 1-story, 2-story frames with an attic. They don't do vertical ventilation. It's all horizontal ventilation. The only time you're getting into vertical ventilation is when you get into tenements, apartment buildings, commercial, industrial. Then you're doing vertical. But in private houses, it's pretty much horizontal ventilation. But again, flow path, they're just starting the past few years, starting to get into that science of flow path. And unfortunately, how we started learning about that, and maybe it's a little bit more than a few years, because I was still on the job when some of these fires happened. We had, several guys that I can think off the top of my head got killed on account of flow path. And I can remember one job that I was at. This job, I guess it had to be maybe 25, probably even more than that, 30 years ago. Anyway, it was a hot July day. Fire was in a high-rise apartment building along the river. All right. Fire was in the upper floor in an apartment on one of the upper floors. So now, the higher you go up, all right, the stronger the wind gets. And you can almost see that when you go up if you go up on an aerial ladder. And you put the aerial ladder up 50, 60 feet, and you're up there, it can be real windy. But down on the ground, it's not windy. So anyway, we get to this job, and we're in the rescue at the time, and we get up there, and the two companies that were up on the fire floor, they had already taken a beating trying to get down the hallway, so they had ran out of air, so they had gone to get fresh bottles of air. So there was this fella, Tommy Baker, who was from Rescue 1, but working in Rescue 4 that day. He grabs the 2.5, and Tommy was a really big guy. And I get behind him, and I'm a little guy, so I got Tommy and the 2.5 protecting me, and we're trying to get down the hallway. We're trying to push the fire back into the apartment with a 2.5, and we can't. And I said to Tommy, let me go back. There's another line back there, an 1 3/4 line. Let me get that. So I get the 1 3/4 line and come up with that. And now we got the 2.5 and the 1 3/4 line, and all we can do is hold the fire from coming down the hallway. And finally, how the fire went out, all the contents in the apartment burned out. There was no more fuel. But what happened was, from the heat in the apartment, the windows blew out. When the windows blew out, the wind came in. All right? When the wind came in and the door to the apartment was open, it blows the fire down the hallway like a blowtorch. And if you get caught in that, it's instant death. And like I say, that happened to one of the guys in Rescue 4, this guy, Ralph Williams. It happened to his brother, Jimmy, in an apartment fire, going down the hallway, and smoky. And when they forced the door to the apartment, the windows had gave out in the apartment. The windows were broken. The wind's blowing in. They forced the door. Fire came blowing down the hallway. Jimmy got burned alive in the hallway. And the same thing happened to 3 guys over in Brooklyn. So that's when the job started looking into, what do we do with this? This is a problem. And you see the video I sent you of them forcing the door.
I don't know.
The training video on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, that's Captain Bobby Morris. That guy is the quintessential guru of forcible entry. He's the number one forcible entry guy, I would have to say, anywhere. It's incredible what he knows about forcible entry. But what he guys said, if you saw when he was taking the Halligan tool and pulling the door back, you remember that part?
Yeah, so basically as soon as he forced it, and I was actually going to comment on it when I talked to you about it, it was almost instinctual to where he was still talking to the class, but his body mechanics, he just opened the door, hooked it with the ad, and then pulled the door closed and just didn't even think twice about it.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that we kind of learned from a couple of these fires is control of the door. You know, we had a fire in Manhattan called the Watt Street fire. The engine had moved in on the fire. All right, so naturally the door to the apartment is open on the first floor. So the truck company goes to the floor above, two guys and the officer. The engine loses water. The fire comes roaring out the apartment door, up the stairs, and cooks these guys in the hole. You know, so a little bit difficult to have control of the door there because you're already moving in with the line. You know, so you can't close the door. You're not closing the door on a line. You know, but when you're forcing a door, if you don't have the line there already, make sure you have control of that door. You know, that if that fire is coming roaring out, you want to be able to close that door and hold that fire in there. You know, now, one of the things that Captain Morris brought up was you want to make sure when you pull the door back, Halligan, when you pull it back, the door can't completely shut, so it won't lock again on you. You know, which is true. And the other technique, if you saw what he did, he took the fork end of the Halligan and put it on the hinge side of the door. Said if you can't reach in there and get it, you put this in and you flip it against the door, and it'll push the door back to you. You know, one of the things that we used to do was take that nylon webbing or a piece of rope and wrap it around the doorknob. And this way, if the door got forced, somebody was holding onto the rope with a nylon webbing, that if the fire was coming out, you could pull the door back. Now, in that case, sometimes the door would lock again. Most of the times it wouldn't, but sometimes it would lock. And, you know, then you just got to force the door again. But if you've already forced the door, forcing it the second time isn't going to be that hard. You know,
right.
But again, that's where we talk about flow path. You know, and the other thing with flow path, and I've always said this, you can make the fire go where you want it to go if you vent properly. You know, if you vent improperly, the fire may go where you don't want it to go. You know, because what's the fire doing? The fire is like anything else. It's looking for a way out. If you don't give it a way out, it's going to starve to death. And eventually it's going to go out. But if you give it a way out and give it a little ventilation, well, now it's just going to get bigger. And it's going to travel. You know, and I mean, that's tough to do in old construction, but in new construction, you know, things are sealed up so good. You can contain a fire just by closing everything up. I watched a demonstration from these French firemen. It was a great demonstration on a car fire. You know, you go out to a car fire. My thing always was with a car fire, it's a car fire. The car fire is useless. It's going to junk. You know, so all right, why we going crazy with it? You know, knock the fire down and you know, let's not get too crazy here. You know, but what these guys did, or what they have over there, and I don't know if all the engine companies have it over in France, they have a tarp. They have a fireproof tarp. And I think it was 4 guys. They pull the tarp off the truck, they unroll it, they pull it over the car, lay the tarp down, and they wait. And they smothered the fire. Then they roll the tarp off, fire's out, and they wet the car down. And I again, looking at it, I'm like, it's just genius. You know, nobody's busting their balls. We're not stretching lines. We're not getting crazy. Pull the tarp over the car, fire's out. You know, unroll the tarp, wet the car down, the embers and all that. We're done. All right, let's get out of here. You know, just a simple thing like that to put a fire out. So again, you get back here to buildings. If you can seal the room that's on fire, sooner or later the fire's going to go out until it finds a way out.
Nothing you see all those home demonstrations teaching, with your kids, leave your doors shut, that kind of thing, I don't know if you ever seen any of those videos or photos where they'll they'll light this room on fire, they leave the door shut, and then you walk in the door when the one side of the door is completely singed and charred. You jump in the door and you look inside, and then the room is untouched.
Yeah, everything's good. Everything's good, and while you get to that too, another thing that I learned a long time ago is you want to check the door before you open the door. All right, so you take your glove off, or if it's, God forbid, it's in your own house. All right, like I said, you take your glove off. Never touch the door with the palm of your hand. Always touch, when you want to touch something to see if it's hot, touch it with the back of your hand. Reason being, if that door is hot and you touch it with the palm of your hand, what's going to happen?
You're going to burn your hand.
You just burned your hand. Now your hand is burned. It's useless. But if you burn the back of your hand, the working part of your hand is still good. So always test with the back of your hand. So when you're going to force a door, always check the door for heat. If you have the luxury of being where the area, the atmosphere is kind of clear, you may want to start touching the door at the top. Let's see where the heat level is. So you touch the door at the top, you go, oh yeah, it's cooking in there. Now you come down, halfway down the door, hey, well now it's cooling down. Okay, so we know the heat level is only down halfway. You follow what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm drawing a little diagram in my notes to kind of keep a memo of this. So heat at the top. Let's see here. All right. Can you explain that one more time?
Yeah, like I say, when you want to touch something to see if it's hot or not, you always touch it with the back of your hand so you don't burn the working part of your hand. Because once you burn the working part of your hand, you're useless. That hand is no good. All right? So if you're going to force a door, before you force the door, you may want to check where's the heat level. So even if you start at the bottom of the door, all right, the bottom of the door, with your hand, all right, it's cool. I'm coming up. Oh, it's getting warmer. The higher up I'm getting, it's getting warm. Okay, halfway up, it's getting hot. Oh, we got a good job in there. All right, so now it's an indication of when you force that door, you may want to have a hand line ready to go there, or you got somebody with a 2.5 gallon, pressurized extinguisher there, and you want to have control of that door when you force it, because you don't want that fire coming out into that hallway at you, and you have no protection. So like I said, it helps you to judge, what's going on inside there just by feeling with your hand. One of the things in the city, what they started doing in fires in apartment buildings and stuff, where the windows have blown out, and they now have this blowtorch effect. They would go to the floor above the fire, or sometimes go to the roof, depending upon where the fire was, and they had a fire curtain, and they would drop the fire curtain over the side of the building, one of the truck companies, and drop the fire curtain down in front of the window that the fire was blowing out of to stop the wind from blowing into the apartment. Once they got the fire curtain in front of that window, they would tell the engine in the truck company waiting to get into the apartment, all right, the curtain's in place, force the door, and it would stop that blowtorch effect, from getting these guys, But again, that's how we started learning about, from what I understand, how we started learning about flow path and how to control the fire, But they just go in and pour water on the fire, and it's not about that. It's a science, Fire is definitely a science, and you gotta treat it that way, and because it's living. It needs everything that we need to survive. If you take one of those things away, it's not going to survive. So you always got to keep that in the back of your head. Sometimes you got to use something other than water to put it out. maybe you just might want to smother it. It depends on the situation. But yeah, flow path is very important, I think.
Even when it comes to overhaul stuff, and even as silly as it may seem, but like dry cooking and stuff like that, when you have smoke going, kind of learning, hey, keep this window closed, put the fan here, and one window open here, and just something simple like that. Just a good training exercise too. Something when I've learned, my captain's kind of taught me on things that aren't as critical. Hey, this is kind of the concept picture. This is the fire's in this room, X, Y, and Z. Here's the fan. This is simulating the fire. The door. This window is open. Where is it going to go? I close this window. Where's it going to go? And
where's it going to go? Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just a good on the job kind of training tip for picture it as the wind as the fire, and where is it going to go?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, do you guys use fans to ventilate at all?
Yes.
All right. Now,
like the little on a roller, you crank it up.
Yeah.
It's
either
just kind of
you
a small
got a gasoline engine on it, or you plug it in. A small fan, and usually out here in the valleys we'll use that. When the fire is over, and we want to clear the house. Or if we got a CO call and we want to clear the air in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So a little tip, and you might already know this. A little tip with a fan. A lot of guys, and it's usually the new guys. A lot of guys, they put the fan right in the doorway.
That was me.
All right. Exactly. And I'm talking about like the front door of the house. They put the fan right in the doorway. All right. You always put the fan 3 to 4 feet back from the doorway. And anytime you want to vent an area, and you're in the doorway, move the fan back from the doorway. You want to know why? Well, maybe you already know why.
Well, so ironically, this same call I was talking about, I got the fan going and I put it smack dab in there, and it creates almost like a vacuum to where it doesn't actually force it. It has to have, basically when you're blowing the fan, it almost creates like a cylinder shape, airflow that it's pushing to, and the cylinder has to hit the door on the frames. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, what happens is it's I call it a funnel effect.
Funnel, that's it, not
right?
cylinder, funnel. That's the word.
Yeah. Yeah, when you move the fan back several feet from the door, all right, what you're doing is that space that you move the fan back from, when that fan's on and it's moving air into that door, it's also pulling the air in around the sides there. You follow what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're getting a much, much larger airflow into, and basically what it is, it's a reverse funnel effect. You're getting some of the air is coming through the fan. All right, that's the small part of the funnel. Now when the air exits the fan and it's got to travel that 3 feet into the front door, in that 3 foot area on the sides, it's pulling more air in. And that's the larger part of the funnel. It's a reverse funnel effect.
Yeah, so it's kind of like picture like a tornado almost. And you put the tornado on the side.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're putting the tornado on the side. And the bigger the fan you have, the further you can move it back from the door, and you'll get so much more air movement than putting the fan in the door. Plus, you won't have guys tripping over the fan coming in and out of the building, But what you were saying though, that's a good way to show flow path, especially if you can smoke up a building, and then open windows, close windows, open doors, close doors. You can really get the effects of what flow path is all about. You get some of the old dinosaurs on the job. They're like, what are you talking about? But again, it's like trying to teach old dogs new tricks. But it is, It is something very good to do. Like, I mean, even now, guys tell me on a job in the city, before they break out any window, they have to get on the radio now and ask, is it okay to take this window? You know, and that's, from what I understand, it's all about flow path. You know, but anyway, what I was talking about before was size up. You know, anytime I would start a class and ask guys, you know, about size up, and I'd say, you know, well, when does size up begin? You know, and you always got the obvious answer. Well, as soon as the run comes in, size up comes in. You know, which, yeah, there's a certain amount of truth to that. But I said, if you think about it, size up goes on every day of the week, no matter what day it is, you know, 24/7, 365, you're always doing size up. You know, and guys have said, you know, well, what are you talking about? I said, think about this. You got to go to work in the morning, you got the 9x tour. Yeah. What are you doing? Before you go to bed at night, you look at the weather. What's the weather going to be tomorrow? Well, it's going to be cold. I got to dress this way. There's going to be snow. I got to leave earlier. You know, you get in your car, you turn the radio on. What are you listening on the radio? The traffic report. Oh, the traffic's too heavy on this road. I'm going to cut over to that road. You know, I said, what are you doing? You're sizing up. You're sizing up your day. You know, you're going to the firehouse. It's going to be a cold day. I better throw some extra gear on the truck, you know, extra dry clothes just in case. You know, I said, so you're sizing up all the time. I'd say to the young guys, you go to the mall, or you go to a disco, or you go to a restaurant, or whatever, a bar or something like that, and you walk in and you're looking at the girls. What are you doing? You're sizing them up. You know, that's all. I said, size up never stops. You know, we're always, if you think about it, we're always sizing up. And a good fireman will constantly size up his response area, you know, anything that he may be responsible or may find himself going to. New buildings under construction, you know, well, you want to go over there. You want to take a look at it. What's going on here? What are they doing? Are they using trusses here? Is it steel? Is it wood? You have a job in a building. After the fire's over, you may want to take a few minutes and stay in the building and go over the building and say, all right, let's see what went on here. Where did the fire start? How did it travel? You know, and just sizing up, just driving around your neighborhood and looking at buildings and sizing them up to say, all right, what if there was a fire in that building? What kind of roof is it? Is it a flat roof? Is it a bowstring truss roof? Is it a pitched roof? You know, or sometimes what they call a rain roof, which is a second roof over the main roof, extremely dangerous. You know, and while we're on roofs, I know you don't get to get on roofs too much, but I just want to give you this tip. If you're on a roof of like a taxpayer or so, a row of stores, and you ever have to go from roof to roof, from store to store, crossing the building, always cross in the front of the building.
Okay, why is that?
Because
so like
if you got a job
on the alpha side, I guess. Yeah.
No,
is that what you mean?
The reason being is, if you have a job in a building, let's say it's 1 story, 2 story, whatever, could be 3 story, you know, and you have to go from maybe the roof on that fire building to the next roof, and you're in the back of the building, well, you want to walk to the front of the building if you can and get over and walk across the front of the building. The reason being, the front of the building is going to be even with all the other buildings. The back of the building you're on may go 10 feet deeper than the next building. You walk across the back, heavy smoke condition or so, you may walk right off the building. You know, I had that happen with a young guy on a roof. He said to me, you know, he goes, Eddie, I'm gonna go over onto the next roof. I'm like, all right, fine. You know, I said, whoa, where are you going? You know, we had a really good smoke condition. Plus, it was at night, very dark. He goes, I'm going across there. No. I said, go up front and walk across the front and get there. So All right, fine. So he did that. You know, when the fire was over, he said to me, "Why'd you tell me to go to the front of the building?" I said, "Come on, let's go to the back of the building." I said, "This is the building. This is on a 3-story building." I said, "This is the building that we're on, right? This is where we were." "Yeah." "You were going to walk to the roof on the next building, right?" "Yeah." "Where's the roof on the next building?" This building went back about 40 feet. The building next door only went back about 25 feet. He would have walked right off a 3-story building. So.
Yeah, I you know what? And the next time I go, I'm at work, I'm gonna drive around the back of. We have, like you said, I was telling you, we have one of the taxpayer across the street from our firehouse, and I never realized it, but yeah, you're right. The front of them are all the exact same length.
They're all straight.
And that just, kind of an aesthetic, I guess, aesthetically pleasing. It looks good, you know.
Some may be, yeah, they might be deeper than others. The other thing that you always do is walking across the roof. I don't care if it's the front or the back. You got a heavy smoke condition. If you got a hook, if you're on the roof, you should have a hook, you know, and you got the hook down, hold the hook at one end, put the hook end down, and let that walk in front of you. It's going to hit any obstructions. It's going to hit any cables that you might run into from antennas, you know, whatever might be up. And if it's going to go off the edge of a building, you'll feel it up. You know, so what you might be coming to is an open skylight, you know, or you might be coming to the edge of the building, you know, but you walk with that. If you can't see where you're going, then you can't trust where you're going. So walk with that hook. So that hook is 6-7 feet out in front of you. So if that's the first thing that's going to hit something, you know, and it may hit the parapet wall on the edge of the roof that you didn't see. So now all of a sudden the hook stops and gives you a little shove. You got to get down. You know, oh, what the fuck we got there? You know, oh shit, that's the edge of the building. You know, that you might have tripped over. You know, so just little tips about working on the roof, but very important. Crossover in the front of the building if you can. If you can't, make sure you know where you're going. You know, don't have a hook. Don't just
have a hook to kind of guide your way, I guess.
Oh yeah, have the hook guide your way. You know, and you might have to. I mean, if you got a heavy smoke condition, you might have to get down on your hands and knees and crawl. You know, that's how you're going to keep yourself safe. So we had a job one time down in the lower part of Manhattan in an old high-rise building, and we were up by probably up around the 20th floor, and fire went to a 5th alarm, and they had several of the rescue companies there. So we were on this floor, crawling around and searching, and a lot of the fire had been knocked down, but it was still kind of smoky and steamy, you know, from the putting the fire out. So I'm crawling around and I'm feeling with my hand in front of me and my tool, my Halligan, and all of a sudden I get to a spot where I feel my hook, not my hook, my Halligan, drop a little bit. I'm like, what the hell is this? You know, and I pull the Halligan back, and now I start reaching out my hand. And I feel an opening, and there's no floor. I'm like, what the hell? Well, what it was this high-rise building had these old, huge double-hung windows in them. And they were only, maybe a foot off the floor of the sill. Well, with all the debris that came down from the fire, the debris was deeper than the sill of the window. And this window happened to be open. And like I said, it was up around the 20th story. You know, so if I wasn't paying attention, I could have crawled right out that window. You know, or it could have been an open elevator shaft and went right down the elevator shaft. You know, so again, you gotta, when you can't see, don't always assume anything. You know, you gotta make sure where you're going. You know, And again, even in a house, you want to make sure where you're going. If you can't see, you don't know if the floor is good. You know, the floor, you might be crawling in the front door, and the kitchen collapsed into the basement. You don't know that yet. You know, so you gotta always be aware of that kind of stuff. You know, and a lot of young guys are not, only because they're young guys. They don't have the experience, and I was one of those guys where you're charged in the front door. You know, let's get in there, let's get it, you know. And then as you got a little bit older and you got a little more experience, you would grab the young guys and go, wait a minute, let's take our time getting in here. You know, this looks a little crazy. Actually, on simple fires, you do that. You got a good job, take your time. Take your time. Keep yourself safe. You know, again, we go back to risk versus reward. You know, and when you start thinking that way, you'll live a lot longer. You know, not only on the fire department, but even in real life. You know, you think about some of the crazy stuff you did when you were younger. You get a little older and wiser. You know, like I'm sure you heard the joke, the old bull and the young bull up on. Hello?
I have not heard that.
All right. Old bull and the young bull. They're standing up on top of the hill. Young bull says to the old bull, they're looking down on a herd of cows. The young bull says to the old bull, let's run down there and fuck one of them. The old bull says, let's walk down there and fuck them all. And that's how I always put young firefighters to senior firefighters. The young firefighter wants to charge in and get the fire. The older firefighter is saying, hold on, kid. I got a better way of doing this. We'll put out more fire my way than your way. You know, so always keep that in mind. The young bull and the old bull. You know.
I will definitely keep that in mind.
Yeah, and listen to, I'm sure you have a senior man in your house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things on my job was always listen to the senior man. All right? The senior man in the firehouse in the city, the senior man is like he's like the gunnery sergeant. You know, it don't matter how good the lieutenants are, how good the captains are and all that. The senior man is like the gunnery sergeant. He's maybe been assigned to that company for 20 years. He's been in that company. The officers that are there, they're there maybe 5 years. Great officers. But the senior man knows a good senior man knows the neighborhood and knows everything that's going on. So it's always good to listen to what the senior man has to say. You know, I had some things that I used to call guys, and I think I told you this a while back about the JAFOs and the FNGs. Remember that? Yeah.
Yes.
You know, keep that in mind too, because you want to listen to the FOGS and the FROGS, the fucking old guys and the fucking real old guys. That's how you get to be one of them. You go from a JAFO to a fucking new guy. You listen to the FOGS and the FROGS, you'll get to be one of them someday. You don't listen to them, you may never get there. You know, so important stuff like that. Oh, anyway, I think I'm running out of my topics that I jotted down here, unless you have some stuff there, some notes that we had left off and didn't cover or anything.
And I don't know if this would be another, we're about an hour and a half, if this would be something else, but you sent me that the memorial, the rescue for 9/11 museum.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to figure. And
yeah, that's gonna be.
I read through that. I was gonna post a link to that in the on the Instagram account so people could go read that. But if you wanted to kind of touch on that was a pretty moving statement, on that.
Yeah, what that was, well, Rescue 4's rigged. There's 5 rescue companies in New York City, and they all responded to the World Trade Center on 9/11. And Rescue 4's rig was the only rig that survived the collapse, only because of where it got parked, where the chauffeur parked it. But all the guys on that rig got killed that day. And so that rig is now out in the Hall of Fame in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's going to be on display there forever, with the story of the guys who were on that rig. And so what that was about was there's going to be a dedication out there in the middle of August. I think it's August 14th or August 16th, and a lot of the guys from Rescue 4 were flying out there to be out there for the dedication. And I understand there's a lot of news media people going to be involved in that, so it should be a pretty nice thing. But like I said, it was the only rescue rig that survived the collapse. I mean, not that it wasn't damaged; it had some damage and had to be cleaned up and restored. But these people out in Arizona, along with there's a whole bunch of retired New York City guys out in Arizona. They worked on it and put it back to the way it was. And like I said, they're going to have the dedication in August, and it'll be on permanent display out there. So something that we're really looking forward to seeing it out there. And it's a nice thing that these people did out there. But yeah, that's what that was about. Oh, here, I got a funny story for you. This is a story about the arm of the fire, and what it was. One of the guys in Rescue 4, he had kind of like he messed around with. It was a fake arm that had a sleeve on it, and it had a rubber hand on it, And so anyway, we had it one night. We took it. We had it at a fire, and so what we used to do with it is we would put it like behind a couch or something like that. And the truck companies would, if a truck company was given their primary search as negative, and if they were giving that to the chief, we would lay the arm behind the couch, and then we'd call the truck over and we go, hey, truck, did you just give the primary negative? And they go, yeah. So you might want to look behind that couch, and they'd look, and there's an arm laying there, and they'd say, oh, shit, So we couldn't do it, we couldn't do it too often. You could only do it to one truck once, So we did that one night. It was up in the Bronx. So now we get the arm, and we come out of the building, and we have the arm, and we walk down to where our rig is, and to the tower, one of the tower ladders is down there. And this guy, Lonnie, big, huge guy, he was driving the tower ladder, So his guys are down there, and they're like, Rescue, what the fuck what is that arm you got, We go, oh, watch. So the tandem axles on the back of the tower ladder, we stuffed the arm up there in the tandem axles, all right? And so now their guys caught on right away. They go, oh, this is great, So Lonnie comes walking down, and now it's Lonnie's guys who got it, and Lonnie's guys, one of them says to him, hey, Lonnie, remember when you made that turn a few blocks from here and you hit that bump? Yeah, you better come look at this, right? So now you got to think, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. It's dark and everything. Up, and he sees up in the tire there's this dirty sleeve and this dirty hand and this arm up there. Well, it still makes me laugh, but I thought Lonnie was going to have a heart attack. Then I got scared. Like, oh fuck, we killed this guy, because he grabbed his chest and he starts breathing and he can't breathe, and he's trying to catch his breath, and he's going, oh fuck. And finally we're like, Lonnie, we're just fucking with you, So he was like, you know, we pulled the arm out. We go, we're just joking. He's yelling, you motherfuckers. And he's yelling at me. He goes, you fucking mountain, I'll get even with you yet. You know, I'm like, yeah, all right. You know, well, anyway, the next day we catch a job. And we catch a job in truck. And Lonnie's the chauffeur, you know. So as he gets off the rig, he's pointing to me and he's laughing. He's going, I'm going to get you. Now, I was in an auto body shop, and next to the auto body shop was a vacant lot. So I got to get around to the back of the building, all right? So I go through the vacant lot, and there's a wooden stockade fence. So I got to knock the fence over or go through the fence to get to the back of the body shop, all right? Well, I guess this was Lonnie's payback. I knock a section of the fence down, and the section of the fence that I knocked down had a yellow jacket hive in it. So now I got all these yellow jackets stinging me, and I must have got about 15 yellow jacket stings in my head. They were up under my helmet. So I do what I had to do, and I come out. Now they got me over by the ambulance just to check, you know, that I'm okay. And Lonnie comes walking over. What's the matter with you? I go, I hit a yellow jacket thing. I must have got stung 15 times. He's laughing at me. He goes, I knew I'd get you back somehow, you know. But anyway, so the story goes on a little bit further. A few days later, the chief of special operations calls our captain and says, I got to come over and want to talk to you guys. So, all right, yeah, chief, come on over. So the chief comes over, and he's talking the couple of nights ago, the arm. He goes, look, I understand you guys had a fake arm or something like that, and you're having a little fun with it. Yeah, chief, yeah, we had a little fun with it. What's the problem? He goes, well, some civilians saw it, and they didn't think it was very funny, you know. So now this guy, Richie, excuses himself. He goes, excuse me, I just got to go to the men's room, you know, go to the bathroom. Yeah, all right, come on. Right? So Richie leaves. And so the chief is talking about it. He goes, look, fellas, you can't be doing, you know, look, around a firehouse, you know, you can't be doing this at fires, you know. Like, all right, chief, you know. So Richie comes back, you know, and so the chief says, all right, so look, you got it? No more fucking around with the arm anymore at fires? Yeah, sure, chief, no problem. So Richie sticks his hand out to shake the chief's hand. And what Richie did was stuff the fake arm up his sleeve. And the chief reaches out to grab Richie's hand to shake it, and he grabs the fake hand, and Richie pulls back, and the chief's standing there holding the fake arm. The chief looks at it, and he looks at us, and he goes, fuck it, forget about it. And he walks out the door. But again, back in those days, you could get away with shit like that, you know. And then the arm, one of the guys in the firehouse, I had the arm in my locker. He says to me, Eddie, can I borrow the arm? I want to take it home. And this guy, his name was Goose, and he used to love playing practical jokes. I go, what are you going to do with it? He goes, oh, I got to get my daughter. My daughter's always playing jokes on me. Okay. So he takes it home, comes back to work a few days later, gives me the arm back. I go, did you use it? He goes, oh, it was great. I go, what'd you do? He goes, I put it in the clothes dryer. I go, yeah. He goes, so now I'm sitting in the living room and I'm reading my book. And my daughter comes downstairs. And I said to my daughter, hey, why don't you do your mother a favor? Why don't you go downstairs and get the clothes out of the dryer? And she goes, oh, all right. She goes down to the basement. He goes, and the next thing I hear is this blood-curdling scream. And he says, I'm sitting in a chair going, yes, I fucking finally got her. You know? And she found the arm there in the dryer with all the clothes. But again, just some of the stupid shit we would do. You know? But it was funny.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like, you know, you say you can't get away with a lot of that stuff nowadays, but I feel like that kind of stuff helps make the job go, make the job what it is, you know, kind of those de-stressors, you know, the kind of dark sense of humor. But I mean, I don't think it's, you know, necessarily too dark. I think that's just pretty funny, you know.
Oh, it is. It's funny, but you know what I mean about getting away with it. Getting away to a chief, putting the fake arm on the chief. There, back in the day, most every forget about it. Today, they're all so uptight about everything. They don't want to take a chance of doing that because now they're going to. Oh, you think this is a joke? Think this is fun? All right. You got 3 days suspension because you think this was funny. Where back then, fuck it. So.
What do you think changed that? It's kind of almost like more of a serious question. What do you think changed from back in the day, quote unquote, to nowadays? Chiefs take things super seriously, and you can't get away with things like that. And, what do you think changed?
I think politics had a lot to do with it. Everybody's trying to be politically correct. I mean, I had an officer one time that he was all about being politically correct, and I said to him, Lou, you know what's wrong with being politically correct? He goes, what? I go, nobody's telling the fucking truth. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, if I don't like you and you don't like me, I want to know that. I said, I don't want you being nice in front of me, and then when I turn my back, you're being nice in front of me because you're being politically correct. But then when I turn my back, you're talking about me and stabbing me in the back. I said, if I know you don't like me and you're honest with me, I'll know how to deal with that. But if I don't know that, I don't know how to deal with that. So political correctness, I think, changed a lot of things around. And the other thing that happened, I think, in the city fire department was after 9/11, so many guys over the next couple of years retired from the job that the exodus of the senior men was incredible. The amount of experience that was lost on account of 9/11 was just unbelievable. It could never, ever be recaptured. So now you had that, the loss of the senior men, guys that came through, like I say, the war years of the department, right? Now you had younger guys with not a lot of experience, not all of them, some of them, getting promoted through the ranks because they were good students, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they got promoted and they didn't know what it was like, say, back in the old days. They didn't have that experience. They may have had, before 9/11, they may have had 5 years on the job. After 9/11, the next 5 years, guy took a couple of tests, he's a captain. And he's got 10 years on the job, and he doesn't have a lot of fire experience, and maybe he worked in a house where the senior men all retired, or there weren't a lot of senior men, so that, I believe, that's what changed a lot on the job. I mean, you used to be able to get away with things, like I say, with chief officers and stuff, not disrespect them, but you could do funny stuff, and joke with them, and they would just, kind of blow you off or tell you get the fuck out of here, something like that. You can't do that a lot anymore because you got these guys that are so uptight about being watched and going by the rules. And back when I was a fireman, I mean, there were a lot of rules, but we didn't follow a lot of them, and nobody cared. And the reason why nobody cared, they wanted you to put the fires out. Now it's almost like they're not worried about if the fires go out. They want to make sure you're dressed properly, you're not insulting anybody, And I'm not going to say that for every place, but it seems to be that way. Even in the firehouse, in the firehouse, constantly when I was on a job, it's like the ball breaking never stopped, and you may know the deal there. If you're not getting your balls broken, you're not right. Well, now everybody's got a cell phone. Everybody's filming everything. Everybody's recording everything, and guys, guys that are on the job, maybe they have no military background. They don't understand the chain of command. They don't understand that the senior man, holds a lot of respect, in the firehouse. So they're, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say they're snowflakes. They're mama's boys. They've never been out there and really got their ass kicked. So that that's the difference. I saw that when I came on the job, there was still a lot of guys on the job that were Korean War vets. Not too many guys were World War II vets, but Korean War vets, Vietnam War vets. They understood the concept of a military operation. And that's what the fire department is. The fire department and the police department. They're paramilitary operations. There's a chain of command that you have to follow. There's rules that need to be followed. However, there's also ways of getting the rules across on a lighter side. And that's what comes from really good, experienced guys. They learn how to do that. Guys that are in the book all the time, they're great students, but they don't have that, what's the thing I want? They don't have that common sense, those people skills. They know, this is what it says in the book. We got to follow the rules. I always have a rule. My rule about rules is two things. Rules, number one, rules are made for people who can't make a decision, because they'll always say, that's what the rules say. Why'd you do that? Because that's what the rules say. They're also used as a guideline for people that can make an educated decision, so that someone can look down at the rules and go, all right, this is what the rules say, but to get this done, we're going to have to bend this rule a little bit, or we might have to change this rule, or maybe we can't follow this rule to get this done. That's the sign of a good leader who knows how to bend the rules to get the job done without getting anybody hurt. There's a book that what's his name? Colin Powell. You know who Colin Powell is?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he wrote a book about command and stuff, and about his life basically. And it was a pretty good book. But the one thing that I remember in the book, he told the story, and he said it's the difference of leadership today and leadership how it used to be. He said when he was a lieutenant and he was stationed in Germany, he said we were going out one morning and we were going on maneuvers. He goes, and I'm looking for my 45 and I can't find it. He said, so now I got to make a decision. Do I miss going out on maneuvers and continue hunting for my 45, or do I go out on maneuvers and come back and find my 45? He said, so he decided to go on maneuvers. That was important. Okay. So he's out on maneuvers, and they call him back from maneuvers back to headquarters. It's to headquarters, tell him he's got to go see the general, the commanding officer. He goes into the commanding officer's office, and sitting on the general's desk is his 45. So he comes in, reports to the general. The general says to him, Lieutenant, is that your weapon? Yes, sir. He said, do you know where we found that weapon? No, sir. He said, we found that weapon in an alleyway in town underneath a dumpster. Do you know how it got there? No, sir. He said, do you have any idea what could have happened if a civilian found that weapon? And somebody would have got shot and hurt with that weapon? The kind of trouble it would cause the United States Army and the United States government? Yes, sir. All right. Take your weapon. Don't let it happen again. Okay. And he left. That evening, he found out the real story. The real story was his weapon was wedged against his bed and the wall in his bunk room. All right, it wasn't found in town under a dumpster. But the point the general was making was how important it is to protect your weapon and know where your weapon is all the time. So he made the point by using that example of saying, we found it in town. All right, and he let the lieutenant off with just don't let it happen again. In the story Colin Powell tells, he said, now, in today's military, there would have been no story like that because most of the generals don't know how to tell a story like that because they don't have that experience. He said, and I would have got court-martialed. He said, so that's the difference, and that's the difference today. Years ago, that's what would happen. Like I said, the chief with the arm, we played a joke. The chief with the arm was like, oh, fuck it. You know, forget about it. You know, if that was one of the newer chiefs, you're getting charges now because you think this is a joke. You know, and that's what's happened, not only in the fire service, it's happened everywhere. You know, it's people just don't, young people, and not all of them, do not understand respect. They don't understand how to get things done without demanding respect. All right, you cannot demand respect. You have to earn respect. It's like I told you before about Captain Corcoran. He said, you take care of the men will take care of you.